one of the reasons that it is so hard to have conservatives is kind of come into some of the bridging conversations that we're talking about is not only their fear of being ostracized or that there's a Trojan horse liberal agenda, but there's also a fear of being rejected then by their group.
Absolutely. And I think we see it, especially with my fellow conservatives, but across the board now as we're defining our tribes more narrowly and finding our belonging in those increasingly narrow identity groups and punishing and censuring or censoring, either way, anybody who dare step out of line. There's a lot at risk. And we've learned from our friends in this space who are much smarter than I am, that those are our most innate instincts as human beings, is to crave belonging, is to fear rejection, from our own group, fear threat from another group. And so to your point though, Debbie Lynn, it's not only that rejection from the other, it's rejection from my own tribe in which I'm finding such belonging because I dare go and speak to them, those people who are the threat, who are the enemy. And when everything is in that binary, we can feel stuck. And we can also, I think we see in many instances, believe things and kind of go along with things that maybe that doesn't feel quite right, but you know what? I'd rather have a team than not have a team. So I'm going to go and I'm going to run with that evolving belief system, no matter what it may be. So yes, my fellow conservatives, I think, are very rightly concerned about coming to some of these tables because all of us, but I do want to validate, the view of the conservative being shouted down, being told that their views are not valid, being called names, being ostracized and mistreated by others in the public square, just as other communities and individuals have, how Ivan put it, that over the history, we all have ups and downs, goodness and bad, sin and glory and redemption, and to try to in any way diminish that and silence any of that history or any of that story is painful. Nobody wants to be rejected, and that's what people can fear from those they engage in conversation and for their own group, just for having the courage to have that conversation. Because silencing, last point, I think shutting down voices we don't like is easy, right? But it's listening and finding a way forward through differences that's noble and courageous. And honestly, every day it takes more and more nobility and courage because of just how harsh we've become to one another.
Ivan, I suspect that you've had a lot of these same similar experiences.
Certainly. When it comes to internal community issues, everybody does not understand. And I think that once again, it goes to the mantle of the prophet, that there are responsibilities that perhaps one who seeks to stand in a prophetic role, there are things that they are tasked with accomplishing. What I hear a lot of times, because this is not my first rodeo, it's not my first issue. And so what I've heard down through the years is that while you are pressing and concerned about liberation, we're concerned about survival. And so the engagement in political processes, the vanguard of particular causes, those things are sometimes reserved to those that have the luxury and can afford the time to work on these issues, while the masses are concerned with, at least in my community, how to feed your child and how to hold down the job and how to manage with meager resources life. And so those survival skills are necessary, and the notion of survival trumps the notion of liberation or these political fights that we wind up in. And so for me, that's why it's extremely important for us to stay on the wall, if you will, and to be diligent and to be strategic about forming the necessary relationships. That is a great reason for us to have the Bridge Alliance and for us to have an opportunity to listen. It's important for us to hear one another and practice active listening, so that I'm not just hearing what you say, but then let me repeat back to you what you have said, so that I'm clear. I understand what you said. Now that I'm clear that you have said this, I can respond to that intelligently and with the necessary empathy and respect that is necessary in order for us to have conversations.